Archbishop Emeritus of the Roman Catholic Church of the Diocese of Douala of the Roman Catholic Church, Christian Cardinal TUMI, tells the President of the Republic of Cameroon, Paul Biya, to grant general amnesty in a bid to open up the way out of the troubled waters in the northwest and southwest regions of the Republic of Cameroon. He thinks that this will open the way for peace and normalcy to return in the crisis-stricken regions. And in sports, the indomitable Lions of Cameroon are leading by 1-0 in the return leg encounter against Mozambique in Maputo, in the country's capital, Maputo. It counts for qualifiers for the 2021 Africa Cup of Nations. Christian Cardinal TUMI, Archbishop Emeritus of the Douala Metropolitan Archdiocese of the Roman Catholic Church, says that the President of the Republic of Cameroon should grant general amnesty to all those concerned with the ongoing 4-year-long armed conflict in the northwest and southwest regions of the Republic of Cameroon. In his opinion, this will open the way out of the socio-political and security tensions reigning in those two regions for close to 4 years today. And he was speaking to RFE over the weekend. Unlike him, the Bishop of Kumba, Diocese of the Roman Catholic Church, and the Christians of Tombel in the southwest region think that the solution to the crisis is in the hands of government. Details from me, Armstrong Sander.
Speaking to the media for the first time since he got freedom from the hands of kidnappers on November 6, 2020, Christian Cardinal TUMI told Radio France Internationale RFI what he discussed with his kidnappers.
Il voulait savoir ce qu'était mon opinion sur la forme de gouvernement du pays.
They wanted to know my stand on the form of governance in Cameroon. And I told them, I stand for federalism. They said no, that I should do all for the southern Cameroon. I refused and told them that I was a young man at reunification, and I had peace at reunification. I think it all depends on the head of state to do something, and I believe he can do it. Let him grant general amnesty.
The much desired return to normalcy in the Anglophone regions of Cameroon also preoccupied Catholic faithfuls who took part in the mass commemorating the 75th anniversary of Our Lady Parish in Tombel in the Kupeng-Maningoba division of the southwest region. According to the Bishop of Kumba, His Lordship Agapitus Mfon.
Thing that we all have been going through for the past 4 years in this diocese and in the northwest and southwest regions, the only way out, as I see it, is that the government should be humble enough, and sit down and dialogue such that we can find a true peace, true justice, and a lasting solution to the problems that we have been going through for the past 4 years.
The Tombe parish priest, Father Eric Kotem, says down on the knees and practical love of God alone will bring lasting peace to Cameroon.
Just celebrating the midst of crisis is just a sign of hope, giving hope to people. If we all go on our knees and pray, and if all the Christians, members of Christ live here, to carry the word of God to their respective areas, their job site, and try to live the word of God, we will have the solution to the crisis. To go on our knees, pray, and practice the word of God. And if we practice the word of God, practice love of God and love of neighbor, we shall have a lasting solution. Any other thing short of this.
Just like Christian Cardinal TUMI, Catholic Christian Voices in Tombel says the end to the armed conflict in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon largely depends on the government of Cameroon, which should engage a frank dialogue with the opposing camp.
a 16-year-old child who was believed to have died reappears after a search that wasn't successful in the town of Buda in the west region of the Republic of Cameroon. The young man by name Taze dropped into a well or fell in a well yesterday, and he mysteriously appeared back today. Smartnikan Gabriel has more.
A woman cries out with pains. Her kid, age 16, dropped into this well, which is about 33 meters deep. Her aunt tells us he knocked at the door at about 8 p.m. The mother came out with a phone torchlight but couldn't see him, only to discover his 2 legs outside and his head already inside the well.
En arrivant là-bas, c'est seulement ses pieds qui étaient qui restaient dehors. Elle a tiré, fatiguée, elle n'a pas pu.
The arrival of the Army Rescue Unit was seen by many as a solution to remove the kid, whose name we got as Iwan Tase. Unfortunately, after several search inside the well, he couldn't be found. This made members of the family to think he was already dead, but the body was not found. After the unfruitful search, later in the day, the boy reappeared. According to him, I was angered, so I decided to fall into the well and came out only at about midnight. When I entered into the well, I went right deep. Then I talked with rats. They gave me power to disturb those who didn't agree with me. I jumped into the well because I was angry. After walking, I wasn't paid. The well in question has been locked by the family members.
Now we go up north to talk about the impact of the closure of the territorial border between Cameroon and Chad on economic activities. The traders around the border and in localities close to Chad are complaining over the devastating impact of the closure of the border as a measure to contain the coronavirus pandemic. It's been so for over 8 months. Details with Immaculate Fogwe.
As the economic effects of the coronavirus pandemic unfolds, it becomes clear that some people will be more hit than others. We are in Kuseri, a locality in the far north region of Cameroon. The town has become unrecognizable following the closure of the border on the 17th of March as a measure to fight against the spread of the coronavirus. Traders deplore enormous financial losses incurred from the goods that have remained unsold.
Activities are on standstill. Before the crisis, I could sell close to 1 million francs daily, but now I am unable to even sell 100,000 francs daily.
Due to the health crisis, more than 50 shops have been closed, with traders advancing their inability to pay their rents. 3 months ago, the Chadian government and that of Cameroon had agreed that trucks transporting perishable goods be allowed access into Chad. But transporters plying the stretch expressed frustration due to the numerous toll gates along the stretch.
If the borders were opened, we would not have been facing this problem. When the borders were open, there was no need for us to cross over to Chad because the Chadian drivers would pick up the goods in Kusiri and transport to Jamena. But due to the border closure, we are forced to transport the perishable goods from Kusiri to Chad.
The border closure has equally affected Cameroonian students studying in Chad.
Cameroonian students studying in Chad are facing difficulties. If we want to go to Chad, we must present a biometric card before we are allowed access, but that was not the case before.
While waiting for the borders to be opened, the population continued to suffer the effects of this border closure.
Now to Nkonsamba in the Mongo Division, littoral region of the Republic of Cameroon. Council authorities in that part of the country, in that part of the littoral region, have said to governments that the low funding, insufficient funding and mismanagement of public funds account for the low execution of projects in that part of the country. Some of them were speaking in an evaluation meeting in Nkonsamba, boycotted by most of the mayors. Details with Innocent.
During the session organized by the Ministry of the Economy, Planning and Regional Development, plus the Ministry of Decentralization and Local Development on the sideline to evaluate realized projects in the Mongo Division, majority of annoyed mayors decided to boycott and send their representatives, since they are often asked to repeat works poorly realized. We are very disappointed. If you have observed in the hall, you will see that just a handful of mayors are present. So because a month ago we carried out similar exercise, we nursed projects to maturity, which we handed to Minipart. But we are baffled today, as on the list of funds transferred by the various ministries, the transfers correspond to nothing in terms of what we have nursed to maturity in terms of projects. If the local authorities do not understand clearly what is ongoing, the representatives of Minipart try to better explain for their comprehension. As of the past, we had budgets which were higher, but we had problems having immature projects, that is, whose realization was incomplete, thereby idling these projects, thus low execution rate. Now that the resources are reduced, we are trying to compensate the gap by presenting projects just based on their full maturity. Difficulties encountered by the state must therefore be the preoccupation of all actors in the society. The state faces hard times. It is necessary for each actor to bring their contribution to counter this crisis. Resources are scarce, but the available resources have to be used efficiently. According to the mayors, state supports are insufficient. There are councils with 125 million francs CFA. What can a council do with this amount? A council cannot even get rid of garbage on streets or rehabilitate roads, whereas there is money. Money is not scarce. What is killing this country is mismanagement of funds. When we look at the luxurious livelihoods of others, we begin to question how they would tell us there is no money. These local authorities are demanding proofs from government, at the same time urging state officials to take serious engagement to enable councils attain the expected 100% project realization rate.
Out of Cameroon, migrant arrivals on the Canary Island goes up tenfold. On last year, another 700 migrants were rescued and brought on the island Saturday, taking this year's total to more than 16,000, most of them from West Africa. Katsio News.
Another rescue ship arrives in the port of Arquineguin in the Canary Islands. It is not the first of the day, and it won't be the last. More than 15,000 migrants have arrived in these Spanish islands since August. Moored to the dock, the wrecks of the pateras, the precarious wooden boats on which they brave the Atlantic Ocean to reach Europe's south gate. Hidden away from the view of the media, hundreds of migrants receive first aid on a pier where not a single square meter remains vacant. As a temporary solution, they are sent to hotels where they get tested for COVID-19 and remain in quarantine. Apartments and hotels in the island are now hosting 4,000 migrants, but with one of the lowest COVID-19 infection rates in Europe, the hospitality sector believes it's time to promote again the Canary Islands as a safe holiday destination.
We have to come to the rescue because there are a lot of migrants without a roof, with nothing. But now it's time again to occupy our beds with tourists.
The situation is creating tensions among locals between those who demand better conditions for the migrants and those who believe the situation is becoming unbearable. They believe that by barring the media, authorities are hiding away the real situation.
The fact that you cannot see it, it doesn't mean it's not happening. The neighbors are here, and the neighbors can see with their eyes the tragedy, the drama we're going through in this town.
Outside his hotel, Usama recalls the journey who brought him to Europe in the quest for a better life.
I've seen death at sea. I was in the sea for 4 nights. The waves were coming. I couldn't rest. We're looking for another life. I just want to come to Spain to continue with my life.
Meanwhile, at Arguineguín port, hundreds of migrants continue to arrive in the orange boats, carrying their dreams, rescued from a nightmare. But soon, there will be no more room.
In sports, the indomitable Lions of Cameroon are currently locking horns with the members of Mozambique in the return leg game within the context of qualifiers for the 2021 Africa Cup of Nations. The indomitable Lions are leading by 1-0 goals scored by Abubakar Vincent, match captain, in the first few minutes of play. That was in the first half of the game. The second half is currently going on. It should be recalled that in the away leg, the indomitable Lions defeated the members of Mozambique by 4-1. That was at the Reunification Stadium here in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. Now, before we move on to a talking point, this information: governors of the 10 regions of the Republic of Cameroon are currently meeting in the nation's political capital in the semester meeting, and they are discussing, analyzing, and strategizing on the security challenges and other issues at the level of the regions, especially as the end of year is fast approaching. The governors and the Minister of Territorial Administration and other government authorities are evaluating the security situation in the regions and other challenges that the country is facing at the level of the 10 regions of the Republic of Cameroon. Talking Point is up next. Thank you for staying with us in Talking Point. Our guest is joining us all the way from Germany. Dr. Eta Ewane is the coordinator of the Cameroon Patriotic Diaspora. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Mr. Babila, for having me.
You're welcome back home.
Thank you. It's a great pleasure. It was a difficult trip because I passed through the Sahel, through Brazzaville to get here. But I'm happy to be here. It's a great pleasure, and the pleasure is mine to be with you on your...
What about the COVID-19 restrictions?
Well, I think, as you must have heard already, most of the European countries have embarked on a second lockdown because of the new wave. And Germany, it's on a partial lockdown, and well, most of the measures are still in place. The fine of 25,000 euros is still valid in the area of Bavaria, and the fear is there, it's real. People are panicking.
When you arrived Cameroon at the level of the airport, you came through the Douala International Airport. What did you see as far as the COVID-19 restrictive measures and the implementation is concerned?
Well, we could see that there was the will to observe the measures or to implement them on the part of the health authorities, but as usual, the normal chaos in Cameroon. So the social distancing was not respected by anyone. And I don't know if they took the control of the attestations, the COVID test, seriously. Because I can say I saw a couple of people who, because they had one friend or the other, went through the control without anyone asking them to present the test. And I think this is, apart from putting themselves in danger, they're putting the lives of other Cameroonians in danger. I think at the airport, the control needs to be more serious because, like I say, those of us living in the areas that are heavily affected by the COVID-19 virus, we know what it is, we know what people are going through, and we don't want that to happen here, because if it does, it's going to be a catastrophe for the nation because of our deteriorating health infrastructure. So we do not have the capacity to encounter this disease or the virus, so we need to prevent it. We need to go an extra mile to ensure that it doesn't get to Cameroon.
That is why the Minister of Public Health, Dr. Manauda Malachi, the Prime Minister, Chief Dr. Joseph Jangute, and even the President of the Republic, Paul Biya, have been calling for individual and collective responsibility.
Yeah, that's one thing that is missing in Cameroon. That's the idea of a collective responsibility. People always tend to push everything to the government. I mean, the government has the responsibility to keep you safe, but I mean, you have your part to play as a citizen. So if countries like Germany have succeeded to contain the virus, it is because of this aspect of a collective discipline. So if you say in Germany, we don't want to see anyone out, there's a curfew from 8 o'clock, you don't see anyone out. People respect this because it's all, first of all, about you, it's about your own safety.
Even though some of those measures may be difficult in our own context here in Cameroon because of some realities that make it quite difficult for some of those measures like a curfew to be respected, and so on. People have to go out and get the daily bread and things like that. Now, to the Anglophone crisis now, of recent, there are a series of things that have been happening in the two Anglophone regions of the country, kidnappings that are continuing, targeting and killing of children, abduction of teachers, and so on and so forth. In your own reading of the situation on the ground, what do you think? Where are we moving to? Which direction is the crisis taking us to? At one moment, there were signs that we could have a return to normalcy and peace in those two regions in the months or years ahead, but after that some other things began to happen.
Yeah, but Mr. Babila, to ask me about the direction we are moving to, it's an overstatement. There is no direction. We are heading towards a collective destruction, and this was already, it was visible, it was foreseeable, and people had warned this government about these possibilities ever happening. Now, everyone, every Cameroonian or every Ambazonian must have the courage to condemn what has been going on now. You know, kidnappings, it's something we all have to condemn. The burning of schools, the killing of children in schools, especially the incident in Kumba and what we saw at the Kulu bilingual in Limbe, these are things we should condemn in very strong terms. It's unacceptable. And I'm using this opportunity, I'm using the Equinoxe platform to inform those who got themselves, who dipped their hands into this act of impunity, that they actually committed a war crime. Thus, burning of schools, even in times of conflict, it's a war crime. Schools are protected by two bodies of law, the international humanitarian law and the international human rights law. So the right to education, it's a fundamental human right, and we have to give the children the opportunity to go to school. So whatever be the nature, whatever be the interest we have in a conflict, I think it should be a collective responsibility to ensure that all the children go to schools.
And despite the efforts of government authorities and other stakeholders, leaders, elite of those two regions and so on, there is a tendency of moving to worse days. It's a tendency that things are worsening by the day, but how can we understand this increasing extremism that is being expressed within the context of that crisis?
Yeah, Mr. Babila, maybe before I answer your question, I just want to say there are 4 observations or a couple of observations that we can make in the current context. The first observation is that after 4 years, the war is still ongoing. Second observation, that the military solution that the government has gone in for has not been able to produce the expected results. The third observation is Mr. Biya, who happens to be the president of this country, is not in any capacity able to end this conflict. He's not the man who's going to end this conflict. And so if we take these three observations into consideration, then we might be right, or we can rightfully conclude that we need a change in this country for this conflict to end, because it's going to get really violent. Now, the people have been really hurt. So it's so difficult to go to the southwest or the northwest region right now and to tell someone who has lost 4, 5, 6 members of his family to drop his arms. This is not something that we are seeing in Cameroon. This is something that we've seen in other conflicts. I've had the opportunity to serve in Sri Lanka. I've had the opportunity to serve in Congo. And right now I'm in the Sahel, in conflict regions, in the Sahel region. So I know what conflict is. I'm not just a theoretician of conflict. I'm also a practitioner. And we had warned the government that we will get to this state. So people have been severely hurt. People have been so badly hurt.
But why do you think?
They do not, it's so difficult to overcome the hurt.
Why do you think that the President of the Republic cannot solve this problem? He is the one who has the mandate of the people as per the results of the last presidential election, October 2018, which he won by over 74%. He is the one who has the mandate, the responsibility to protect the people, to put an end to this crisis.
So it is therefore clear that he's failed to assume the responsibility that Cameroonians have collectively entrusted into his hands. As President of the Republic, he had the possibility to prevent the conflict from ever eroding. He never did. Even when the conflict started, he had the possibility to end it. He's never done that. He has blindly opted for the military solution that is not producing any results. We have civilians dying. Even if you call them Amber Boys, they are citizens of this country, they are dying. You have soldiers dying. So no one is gaining in this conflict. And so the president has failed to assume his responsibilities.
Is the failure all on the shoulders of the President of the Republic? There are two parties involved in the crisis.
Yeah, while we blame everyone, I think the only party we know that has received its legitimacy from the people, it's the government, headed by Mr. Biya. And when we talk about his mandate, well, that too is questionable. Because like I say, his legitimacy is contested. It's contested by the CRM party, which is saying Mr. Kamto, Professor Kamto won the elections. And when citizens of a country pick up arms against their own government, they are sending out a clear message. We do not recognize you as our president. So his legitimacy is contested also in the northwest and southwest regions. And so if he had that sense of responsibility, the most urgent thing he would do is to step aside and let some other Cameroonian try to find a solution to this conflict. Because like I said, no one is winning in this conflict and no one is going to win. We are all going to lose as a people.
Will he not be qualified as a coward, as a president who abandons his people in the midst of trouble? Is quitting the solution?
Anyone who qualifies him as a coward because he stepped aside is someone who has no understanding of what power is all about. Someone who has no understanding of what leadership is all about. Leadership requires a lot of courage. And the courage to step aside, to say, well, I have failed in my responsibility. I think I need to take responsibility for what is going on in Cameroon, and I want to step aside so I give peace a chance. That would be a real demonstration of leadership and not cowardice.
The diaspora also has a role to play. We're talking there about the responsibility of government, the head of state, and all the other authorities. Now, the people too also have a role to play. The diaspora also. Recently, the United States Under Secretary of State for African Affairs, Tibor Nash, called on the diasporans in the United States, the Cameroonians living in the United States, to rise up and do something to put an end to this crisis. And we can extend this to the Cameroonians in other parts of the world, in Germany where you are, in England, and all around the world. What can they do? What have they been doing, first of all, at your level, the CPD? What has it been doing?
Yeah, I think there is something I have to let you know, Mr. Babila, and it is the fact that the Cameroonian diaspora has a very strong attachment, emotional attachment to their homeland, even those who have given up their nationalities. They do that for other vested interests, but deep in them they are still Cameroonians, and they do all they can to ensure that things work well in Cameroon. And the Cameroonian diaspora in the United States did not need to wait for Mr. Thibonage to come out to tell them what they need to do. They've been taking their responsibility, and they've been doing that seriously. Of course, even going out to demonstrate, giving up their responsibilities, not going to work because you want to demonstrate for change in Cameroon, it's a normal sacrifice. You can look at the huge investments that Cameroonians, the diaspora is making here in Cameroon. They could make those investments in Europe and in the United States and earn a lot of money. No, but they make that sacrifice to ensure that people have an opportunity to live here in Cameroon. So the diaspora, especially the CPD, has been active. I think we've had 3 forums so far. The first was in Paris in 2017, and we had people like, we had Cabral Libby. We invited Cabral Libby. We invited Dr. Christopher Formunyo. We invited Elimbi Lobe, and let me use this opportunity to wish him well because I heard he was victim of a sad incident. So we had these people to try to discuss with them to see how we can contribute to change in Cameroon, because the goal of the CPD, the leitmotif, like I say, it's regime change. And the only possibility we saw was for the opposition parties to come together, come up with a unity force so they can overthrow the system, because the system is so glued that individually they cannot overturn the things in Cameroon. So we've been mediating to try to ensure that these people work together as a team. And so the second forum in Brussels in 2018, we had Serge Espoir Matomba, we had Dr. Simeon Kriso and other people. And in Munich, we had Ms. Kawala, Maître Alice Combe, Barrister Sim. I personally invited also former Minister Governor David Machoy, who for one reason or the other could not attend.
We are going to talk about that meeting in a short while, because there are lots of controversies surrounding that meeting in Munich. Now, talking about the contribution of the diaspora, in this present state where the diaspora is divided as far as the crisis in the 2 Anglophone regions are concerned, there are some at the extremes, some who are moderates, some are the other extremes, and so on. Can you people really put in a significant contribution that can bring peace and normalcy, that can help in the process of restoring peace and normalcy in those 2 regions?
Yeah, right now what the CPD is undergoing an internal structuring, because the CPD was created as a unifying platform. So we have people from all political parties represented within the CPD. But the CPD is not affiliated to any party, and it doesn't defend the interests of any political party. So we are trying to bring Cameroonians together. And so the internal restructuring we are doing right now is, I think, and I'm using this opportunity to tell you that it might be the last time you're hearing me talk as a coordinator of the CPD, because the responsibility of a coordinator is too heavy for a single shoulder. So we're coming up with something we call a college of coordinators. So because we want to move more vigorously towards all other Cameroonian diaspora organizations, so we can work together. We remain as separate, like I say, we will remain as separate as the fingers, yet one as the hand in all matters essential for mutual progress in Cameroon. So we want to act as that unifying platform, bringing all Cameroonians together. Well, we will never have 100%. If we have 60%, that will be sufficient to bring about change. So we can all move in the same direction with the same speed to ensure that change comes to Cameroon. Of course, you have diasporans who are represented in all organizations, be it the European Union, the African Union, the United Nations. So we want to galvanize all these people so they use their positions to try to draw international attention, because one of the biggest problems we find in the conflict in Cameroon is that the international community has gone surprisingly quiet. Because they've issued a couple of communiques, it's not enough. in a situation like Cameroon. We saw recently, just 2 weeks ago, the situation in Ethiopia erupted. And the international community has been going out vigorously to say, hey, war crimes might have been committed. War crimes have been committed in Cameroon. And we need them to come here to investigate. Cameroon is part of that international community. And this is the time to assist Cameroon and not to wait like they did in Rwanda and then to come up and say, never, never again. No. After Rwanda, they came up with a new concept. Responsibility to protect. The people in Cameroon, the citizens of the Northwest and the Southwest are the holders, they are the wielders of sovereignty. They are the wielders of rights and privileges, and these people deserve to be protected. So this is the time to apply the principle of responsibility to protect.
The international community has to take a step higher in its intervention in the crisis. That's what you're saying, right?
Exactly.
Now, when you listen to different diasporan leaders, different Cameroonian leaders in the diaspora talk, it gives you have the impression that the rift between some of you in the diaspora is widening every day. The rift is increasing. The gap is increasing every day, while you're making efforts to bring the people together at the level of the CPD. Why is it difficult? Why is it so difficult for you people to reason together in the same direction?
Well, you have people with different interests. While some of us are fighting for peace to return in Cameroon, there are people, you've ever heard about the political economy of war. Be it in the government or in the diasporan organizations, there are people who are feeding fat from the war. There are people, and such people do not have any interest to see an end to the conflict. However, we are doing our best to ensure that the diaspora becomes actively involved, and I think you're going to hear more from the CPD in the coming months.
In the last meeting that the CPD organized, bringing together some political leaders at home and abroad, Kabanwala Edit of the CPP, Maître Sim of the MRC, political party, lots of controversies erupted from that meeting. And it was said that you invited people to come to Germany and buy guns for the struggle in the Northwest and Southwest regions, guns for pro-independence fighters. What do you have to say about that?
Well, when I listened to some communicators from the CPD party, from the CPDM party, accuse the CPD of inviting people to collect money to buy guns, I found that quite ridiculous. And it's so disgraceful for a nation like Cameroon that people go out on media to throw out such lies. Now, we've been organizing, we're having this forum once every year. This year it was supposed to be in Boston, but because of the restrictions related to the COVID virus, we called it off. But let me just bring you back to the Munich conference of 2019. I personally invited, and I have email exchanges with former Governor David Abuema-Choi, who has been a real actor in the Anglophone, the history of Anglophone grievances in this country, who knows the grievances very well. For one reason or the other, he called it off. He could not attend. We invited Dr. Simon Munzu. For one reason or the other, he could not attend. We invited Professor Nzengwa. He had other commitments during the same period. We invited Professor Dr. Christopher Formunyo, who got stuck in Turkey and could not get to Munich on time. But Maître Alice Nkom, Maître Sim, and Ms. Kawala honored us with their presence in Munich. And you can see the CPD publishes all its communiques. So the decisions that were arrived at that meeting were published. If you can find them online. I think I shared them with you also, or with other journalists. We war, peace first and elections later. And we were inviting these people to try to discuss about possibilities of regime using non-violent means. And you can go on YouTube and find videos we were heavily fought against. by those who thought they were close allies of the CRM party, because Maître Sim was vilified for attending, for honoring our invitation, because they could not believe why they were in another logic of president élu, elected president. We were talking about the political transition in Munich, and that's something they refused to accept. And they threatened us. I received so many calls from people of the bars and other groups saying like they are going to come to Munich to disrupt the forum from ever taking place. Unfortunately, some of them came and they were sitting in the hall and they heard us talking and they took the floor to apologize and ask for forgiveness. So and telling us that they didn't know that this is what we were doing. I just want to say the CPD is special. It's not like other diaspora organizations. If you look at the list, you find professors, university lecturers, you find medical doctors, and very successful Cameroonians in the diaspora. So we are never going to opt for.
There was never any gun buying agenda.
No gun buying agenda, no funds raised. The CPD, we are self-financing our organization. Maître Sim and the rest came because members volunteered. We volunteered to pay tickets, to buy tickets, pay for their accommodation, and even provide per diem for those who will need it. So we make our voluntary contribution. No one has ever financed the CPD. The CPD finances itself. We've put in place our own system that helps us to generate money. We generate money by making voluntary contributions. So there was no discussion about guns. There were no funds raised, and there was no meeting held in Cologne as claimed by the CPD communicator, the CPDM communicators. We were in Munich. Of course, there was another meeting in Cologne where people openly said they were going to buy guns and provide them to Field Marshal. We are not part of that group. I'm not going to call the name because I'm not here to make publicity for anyone. But I'm using this opportunity also, and that's one of the reasons why I'm here, because we're not going to take this lying low. We've already mandated Maître Sim and his group to file lawsuits against these two communicators from the CPDM. They have to prove that. The CPD is an organization that is duly registered, legally registered in Paris. And we have an address, we have an account that is controlled by the competent authorities. So whatever comes into our account and whatever goes out, it's known by the French authorities. And so we will have to hold these people accountable, because we cannot allow buffoons to come on TV platforms to insult people who are working hard to ensure that real change comes to this country. I looked at the young man. He's someone who studied in Lyon, got a PhD. It's not easy, to assert yourself as an African in Europe. They could not. And the only thing they found is to return home and make career within the CPDM party. And I'm saying this for you to become a communicator in the CPDM party. One of the first conditions is to sell your soul to the devil. And that's what they've done, but we are not going to take it lying low. So they will have to account for whatever they say.
They will tell you that they are working for the nation, they are fighting for national interests, and not selling their soul to the devil, as you indicated. Dr. Itai Wan, a coordinator of the Cameroon Patriotic Diaspora, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Mr. Babila, for this great opportunity.
Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us. That's it for today.